نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Respected listeners, in our last week's verse of Bukhari, we were explaining the second hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari, in which Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha once asked Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, how did Wahy, revelation, comes to you? In what form? And I mentioned the revelation that used to come to Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam through Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam. It used to be in different ways, several ways. There were various ways through which Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam used to appear or used to come to Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Two of them have been mentioned in this hadith of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. The hardest form of wahi was when our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that I used to hear some sounds like ringing bells, and this was the most hardest one on me. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha mentions, at the time of this mode of wahi, our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's breath would seem to stop, and his front blessed teeth would shiver from cold, and he would start sweating. And this kind of wahi, as Umar radiallahu ta'ala mentioned, that sometimes we could hear sound of this wahi. And he said we sense it like the buzzing honeybees. The buzzing of honeybees, how it makes a sound. A very similar sound we used to hear when this wahi used to come to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this type of wahi was the hardest on Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the second mode and form of the wahi, which was the very easiest one, and which is mentioned here, and that is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the Prophet Jibreel alayhi salatu wasallam would come and communicate with me, he speak to me, and this was the very easiest one, meaning he used to come in a form of a human being. And generally, when Jibreel alayhi salatu wasallam used to come to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a form of a human being, he would come generally in the form of Sayyiduna Hazrat Dihya Kalbi radiyallahu ta'ala. He was a Sahabi of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Generally, when Jibreel alayhi salatu wasallam would appear before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a form of a human being, he would appear in the form of Hazrat Dihya Kalbi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. But sometimes he would come in another form of another person. Like in the hadith of Ihsan, Umar radiallahu ta'ala mentioned once we were sitting in a gathering of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking to us, and all of a sudden we see this man comes, and he, from the appearance, there was no sign of him being a traveler. Because in those days, when people used to travel through the deserts, they would have dust on their heads or on their face. And he was wearing very white clothes, and his hair was very dark. And there was no sign of a journey, that this person has come from a journey, no sign at all. And secondly, it was very surprising that from us, nobody knew him, nobody recognized him. Nobody. So, meaning from us, nobody recognized him, nobody knew him. It meant that he was an outsider. But when you look at his appearance, it showed that, he's not an outsider, he's not a traveler. But anyhow, he comes and he sits right in front of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he asks some questions. And he said, what is Islam? And when Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied to him, then he said, Sadaq, you have spoken the truth. The Sahaba Ikram, they say, we were amazed. He's asking questions, and when the reply comes, then he's also confirming that you're right. And then he said, what is Iman? Prophet ﷺ, he replied, what Iman is, to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to believe in the Akhirat and the Malaika and in the good and bad. And then he said, Sadaqta, you have spoken the truth. And then he asked, could you tell us what is ihsan? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, ihsan is that when you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you should be worshipping with the thought that you are seeing Allah with your own eyes. And if you cannot get to this stage, and then remember that Allah is, you should have a thought that Allah is watching you. And then he asked about the Qiyamah, when the Qiyamah would come. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam replied that the one who is being asked has no more knowledge than the one who is asking. And then he said, well, tell me about the signs of the Qiyamah. So then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned the signs of the Qiyamah. The time will come when a slave girl will give a birth to her master, which the ulama ikram, they explain, which means a time will come when the daughters will treat their moms like an employer or like someone who is a master, and he treats the slaves in a very similar way. The daughters will treat their moms. And if we look around, and you will agree with me nowadays how daughters are treating their moms and their mothers. And then Umar radiallahu ta'ala, who he said, Rasulullah mentioned some more signs of the Qiyamah. And then some time passed. Later on, Rasulullah said, Umar, do you know who this man was? He said, I don't know. Allah and His Rasul knows best. He said, he was Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, who came to teach you your religion. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, this form of Wahy was most easiest one. When Jibreel comes to me in a form of a human being, he would talk to me, and most easiest one. I wouldn't have to go through any suffering or any pain. This was the second form of a Wahy. The first one, when Prophet ﷺ would hear the sounds of like ringing bells, and this was the second one, when Jibreel would come to Prophet ﷺ in a form of human being. And there was a third form, a modern form of Wahy, which was Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam came to Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam in his original form. And this happened only 3 times in the entire life of Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam comes to Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam in his original form. In one of the occasions, Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he requested Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam that I would like to see you in your original form. When the very first Wahy came on the Mount Hira, when the first verses descended, after that there was no Wahy, and for a long period no Wahy. Jibreel never came to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah was very worried, to the extent that sometimes this thought crossed his mind: I should go on top of the mountain and fall from there and give my life away. Then all of a sudden, when this thought came in his mind, Jibreel invisibly would call him out and say, oh Muhammad, you are the Prophet of Allah. You are true. You are the messenger of Allah. And remember, I am Jibreel. When he would say this, when Rasulullah would hear this, this would calm in his heart, and this would console him. Whenever this thought comes, no, I should go on the mountain, I should fall from there, Jibreel would come from the air, he would speak to him, say, no, don't do this, you are true messenger of Allah, and I am Jibreel. Then a time came when once Prophet ﷺ was in the very open field of Makkah, and all of a sudden he sees Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam in his original form. This was the very first time he saw Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam in his original form, having 600 wings. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he saw Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam in his original form, he fell on the ground unconscious. And the second time he saw Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam in his original form was on the night of Mi'raj. On the 7th heaven, near the Lord tree, Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam appeared before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his original form. This was the second time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw him in his original form. And the third time it was also in Makkah al-Mukarramah, a place called Ajyad. Over there, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam in his original form. So these were the three modes of Wahy. And there was fourth one, and that was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam directly face to face. And this honor was only bestowed upon Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, no other prophet. On the night of Mi'raj, our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he communicated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with his very own eyes he saw in a state of awake. He was awake, not in dream. Although there's a narration that Rasulullah did see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala later in his lifetime in his dream. But on the night of Mi'raj, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his own eyes, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala communicated to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam directly. No in between, there was no one. Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, very angel on Allah, and it was Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this was the fourth form of Wahy that came to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly spoke to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there was a fifth mode and form of Wahy, and that was the Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam never came to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a form of a human being or any other form, but he let some words fall into our Prophet's heart. Which in ilqa, some words came into our Prophet's mind and his heart, and this was also a Wahy. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is known as the blowing in the heart of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these 5 modes and forms of Wahy. And remember, as I mentioned last week, Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam was chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take the messages of Allah to the messages. And it began from Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, and it ended on Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam became prophet, so upon the prophethood of Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Wahy, the revelation came to an end. It came to an end. But unfortunately, my respected brothers, today, there are so many sects within the Muslim community who declare themselves as Muslims. But remember, there is one sect who calls themselves and who declare themselves as Muslims. But remember, in the light of Quran and Hadith, they are purely kafir. Even they are worst of the kuffar on this planet. They are worse than the Jews, and they are worse than the Christians and any other non-believers. Why? Because a Jew will always say, I am a Jew. And a Christian will say, I am a Christian. A Hindu, he will say, I am a Hindu. A Sikh will say, he is a Sikh. But this sect who has been declared in the Assembly of Pakistan in 1974 by the Assembly of Pakistan, and ulama ikram were there, and with the effort of the ulama ikram, it was the President, Prime Minister Bhutto, who declared him kafir. But it was the ulama ikram, who debated in the court against the Qadianis. This sect, is working very hard day and night. And I've mentioned many times before, many students, Arab students, because what these people do, they bribe the people. They say, look, if financially, if you're very weak, if you're very down, we are here to help you. Even we will get you married, we will give you a young girl, and we will help you financially. And there's a hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, poverty can lead one to kufr. NGOs, if they're working in the African countries, and those people who are, they're financially very weak, they fall into that trap. So we should always, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to let us fall into poverty, because poverty can take one to the kufr. When a person is poor, when he's destitute, when somebody comes with with help to him, then he will listen to him. So this group, this Qadiani, they're known as Qadianis, they are known as Mirzais, and they are known as Ahmadis. They have a TV channel, the Muslim TV Ahmadiyya is known. And many Muslims, they say, what's wrong with them? If you listen, one of the Muslims was saying, oh, what's wrong listening to them? They have tuba on, they have beard, they have a hat on, they have a turban. What's wrong? They have a Quran in front of them. They have Quran in front of them, and through this they're deceiving the Muslims. Through this they're deceiving the Muslims. Why? Because they are kafir, and yet they're calling themselves Muslims. We should remember, as I mentioned last week, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, keep this in your mind. Imam Abu Hanifa, he said, when somebody claims to be a kafir, to be a Nabi, and someone says to him, what's the proof on your Nabuwwat? The one who asked, demanded for the proof, he becomes kafir. So we should remember that we shouldn't let our children sit in front of the TV and let them watch this TV, this channel of theirs, in which they are teaching people the kufr, because they are deceiving us by having Islamic names. The Jew, he's not deceiving us. The Christians, they're not deceiving us. But these people are deceiving the Muslims by having the Islamic names and by having Islamic clothes on, by having the Quran in front of them and saying that they are Muslims. And remember, the Wahy, a revelation came on an end of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this was the second hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari. And inshallah, the third hadith also a very, very lengthy hadith. And inshallah, in that very hadith, we will also learn something about the revelation. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our sitting here and make it means of our forgiveness. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa Maulana Muhammed wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallim. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتوب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.